Hey guys, this is Eric from Invensis, and I welcome you to our YouTube channel. In today's session, we will discuss all the changes in the new edition of the PMBOK guide, that is the PMBOK 7th edition. Before we start, let us quickly go through the agenda. To begin with, we will discuss the origin and history of PMBOK in detail. We will also take a look at all the changes that have been incorporated in PMBOK 7. Then we will discuss the standard for project management and the structure of the PMBOK 7. Then, moving on, we will compare PMBOK 6 and 7. Finally, we will conclude this session by discussing the various factors that affect the changes of PMBOK. If you like this video, do subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also, to learn more about project management and its practices, check out Invensis Learning's Project Management Certification Training on PMP, CAPM, Prince 2, Project Management Fundamentals, PO, and MSP. All of the necessary information is given in the description box below. Now, let's get started with the first topic of today's session, the history of PMBOK. The origins of PMBOK date back to 1969, when the Project Management Institute was founded, with the aim of providing a forum for professionals to share information and discuss problems encountered while managing projects. Fast forward to 1984. The organization issued its first certification, that is the Project Management Professional, PMP. The first ever edition of the PMBOK guide was published in 1996 by PMI. PMI saw a need to put together an official document and guide to advance the development of the project management profession. It initiated a project in 1981 to develop the procedures and concepts necessary to support the development of project management as a profession. In 1983, a special report titled the Ethics, Standards, and Accreditation Committee final report was published, and the guideline for the project management professional certification was created. The special report underwent further development during the subsequent years, and in 1987, the project management body of knowledge was published as a standalone document. It was really an attempt to document and standardize accepted project management information and practices. Finally, after extensive consultation and revision, the PMBOK guide, that is a guide to the project management body of knowledge, was published in 1996 to supersede the previous documents. This guide was known as the PMBOK Guide First Edition. In 2000, the second edition of the PMBOK guide was published. The second edition was based on the work in the PMBOK Guide First Edition. New materials reflecting the growth of the project management profession were included in this edition. It aimed to include knowledge and practices that were generally accepted in project management that were useful and valuable to most projects. Also, the errors of the first edition were corrected. Moving on, the third edition of the PMBOK guide was published in 2004. After the publication of the second edition, thousands of recommendations for improvements of the PMBOK guide were received by the PMI. The PMI formed an editorial committee to review each recommendation and incorporated the suggestions into the new PMBOK guide as appropriate. One major change to the PMBOK guide in this edition is to evaluate project management practices based on generally recognized as good practice on most projects most of the time. This essentially means that the project management practices included in the PMBOK guide would be useful to most projects. Also, this is the very first edition to incorporate the ANSI standard logo on the cover. Finally, it formally defines project management as the application of knowledge, skills, tools, and techniques to project activities to meet the project requirements. The fourth edition of the PMBOK guide was published in 2009, 5 years after the publication of the PMBOK guide third edition. This edition aimed to make the content of the PMBOK guide more consistent and accessible. A clear distinction between the project management plan and project documents was made. The widely recognized triple constraints for project management were expanded to 6, namely, scope, quality, schedule, budget, resources, and risk. Also, new processes were added while obsolete processes were deleted. The next edition of the PMBOK guide, that is the fifth edition, was released in 2013. As usual, PMI received quite a lot of comments and recommendations to the PMBOK guide fourth edition. So, the fifth edition represents PMI's continual efforts to update and upgrade the body of knowledge for the project management profession. The team that updates the PMI tried very hard to achieve consistency and clarity of the PMBOK guide by standardizing the terms, processes, inputs, and outputs. This edition also attempts to include advancements in project management, in particular, rolling wave planning and adaptive life cycle, in its contents. By now, most PMP certification aspirants would read the PMBOK guide during their PMP exam preparation. Moving on to the 6th edition of the PMBOK guide, it was published in September 2017. This edition of PMBOK guide covers more content on Agile project management since it has become one of the fastest growing project management methodologies. There are minor changes in the processes, process groups, and naming of the PMBOK guide project management methodology. The industry survey results, particularly the PMI talent triangle, namely, technical project management, leadership, strategic, and business management, are also incorporated into PMBOK Guide 6th edition. This will be the first edition to make a distinct separation between the ANSI standard and the guide. Also, it is the first time Agile content is incorporated into the text, not just referenced in examples. In this edition, there is a vast expansion of knowledge area front material, including key concepts, trends and emerging practices, tailoring considerations, and considerations for Agile/adaptive environments. In the next part of today's session, we will be talking about what is changing in the new edition of the PMBOK guide, which is PMBOK 7. Like previous editions of the Standard for Project Management and the PMBOK guide, this edition recognizes that the project management landscape continues to evolve and adapt. Over the past 10 years alone, the advancement of software into all types of products, services, and solutions has grown exponentially. Software and its capabilities continue to change as artificial intelligence, cloud-based methodologies, and business models drive innovation and new ways of working. This is because various transformed organizational models have yielded new project and team structures, the need for a broad range of approaches to project and product delivery. This emphasizes a stronger focus on outcomes rather than deliverables. Individual contributors can join project teams from anywhere in the world, serve in a broader array of roles, and enable new ways of thinking and working collaboratively. These three changes have created this opportunity to reconsider perspectives to support the continued evolution of the Standard for Project Management and the PMBOK guide. We will be discussing each of these in detail. Firstly, the process-based standard is changed to principle-based standard. Since 1987, the Standard for Project Management has represented a process-based standard. The Standard for Project Management included in the PMBOK guide aligned the project management discipline and function around a collection of business processes. Those business processes enabled consistent and predictable practices, which could be documented, through which performance against the processes could be assessed, and improvements to the process could be made to maximize efficiency and minimize threats. While effective in supporting good practice, process-based standards are prescriptive by their very nature. With project management evolving more rapidly than ever before, the process-based orientation of past editions cannot be maintained in a manner conducive to reflecting the full value delivery landscape. Therefore, this edition shifts to a principles-based standard to support effective project management and to focus more on intended outcomes rather than deliverables. A global community of practitioners from different industries and organizations, in different roles, and working on different types of projects have developed and provided feedback on drafts of the standard as it has evolved for this edition. In addition, in the PMBOK Guide, 7th edition, co-leaders and staff reviewed other works focused on project management to identify principal concepts embedded in those texts. These combined efforts showed strong alignment and supported the validation that the guiding principles in this edition of the standard apply across the spectrum of project management. To date, the global project management community has embraced the shift of this standard toward a set of principle statements. These principle statements capture and summarize generally accepted objectives for the practice of project management and its core functions. They also provide broad parameters within which project teams can operate and offer many ways to remain aligned with the intent of the principles. Now you must be wondering what the uses of these principle statements are? Using these principle statements, PMI can reflect effective management of projects across the full value delivery landscape, predictive to adaptive and everything in between. This principles-based approach is also consistent with the evolution of the Standard for Program Management, 3rd and 4th editions, and the Standard for Portfolio Management, 4th edition. The Standard for Risk Management in Portfolios, Programs, and Projects and Benefits Realization Management is a practice guide that represents new standard products intentionally developed with a principles-based focuses by global teams of subject matter experts. Nothing in the edition of the Standard for Project Management or a Guide to the Project Management Body of Knowledge negates alignment with the process-based approach of past editions. Many organizations and practitioners continue to find that approach useful for guiding their project management capabilities, aligning their methodologies, and evaluating their project management capabilities. This approach remains relevant in the context of this new edition. Another significant change with this edition of the PMBOK Guide is a systems view of project management. This shift begins with a systems view of value delivery as part of the standard for project management and continues with the presentation of the PMBOK Guide content. So let us understand what this means. A systems focus for value delivery changes the perspective from governing portfolios, programs, and projects to focus on the value chain that links those and other business capabilities to advancing organizational strategy, value, and business objectives. In the context of project management, the Standard for Project Management and the PMBOK Guide emphasizes that projects do not simply produce outputs, but more importantly, enable those outputs to drive outcomes that ultimately deliver value to the organization and its stakeholders. This systems view reflects a shift from the knowledge areas in past editions of the PMBOK Guide to 8 project performance domains. Now, let us understand what performance domains are. A performance domain is simply a group of related activities critical for the effective delivery of project outcomes. Collectively, the performance domains represent a project management system of interactive, interrelated, and interdependent management capabilities that work in unison to achieve desired project outcomes. As the performance domains interact and react to each other, change occurs. Eventually, project teams continuously review, discuss, adapt, and respond to such changes with the whole system in mind, not just the specific performance domain in which the change occurred. Aligned with the concept of a system for value delivery in the Standard for Project Management, teams evaluate effective performance in each performance domain through outcomes-focused measures rather than through adherence to processes or the production of artifacts, plans, etc. Previous editions of the PMBOK Guide emphasize the importance of tailoring the project management approach to the unique characteristics of each project and its context. The 6th edition specifically incorporated considerations to help project teams think about how to tailor their approach to project management. That content was included in the front matter of each of the knowledge areas and provided considerations for all types of project environments. This edition further expands upon that work with a dedicated section on tailoring in the PMBOK Guide. A new section on models, methods, and artifacts provides a high-level grouping of models, methods, and artifacts that support project management. In addition, this section maintains linkages to tools, techniques, and outputs from previous editions that support project management without prescribing when, how, or which tools teams should use. The final change reflects the most significant advancement in the PMBOK Guide's history, the creation of PMI Standards Plus Trademark, an interactive digital platform that incorporates current, emerging, and future practices, methods, artifacts, and other useful information. The digital content better reflects the dynamic nature of a body of knowledge. PMI Standards Plus provides project practitioners and other stakeholders with access to a richer and broader range of information and resources that can more quickly accommodate advances and changes in project management. The content explains how specific practices, methods, or artifacts apply to projects based on industry segments, project types, or other characteristics. Starting with the inputs, tools, and techniques, and outputs from the PMBOK Guide, 6th edition, PMI Standards Plus will continue to incorporate new resources that support continued evolution in project management. Going forward, users of the Standard for Project Management and the PMBOK Guide can find information in PMI Standards Plus that will supplement the information included in the printed publication. The Standard for Project Management and the PMBOK Guide, 7th edition responds to all 4 elements that stakeholders have emphasized in their feedback. So, the revision maintains and enhances the credibility and relevance of the PMBOK Guide. It improves the readability and usefulness of the PMBOK Guide. It also recognizes that there is continued value for some stakeholders in the structure and content of previous editions as well as the content in this edition without negating that value. Most importantly, it links with the PMI Standards Plus digital content platform to respond to stakeholders' needs with vetted supplemental content that supports a practical application. The Standard for Project Management identifies project management principles that guide the behaviors and actions of project professionals and other stakeholders who work on or are engaged with projects. This introductory section describes the purpose of this standard, defines key terms and concepts, and identifies the audience for the standard. The Standard for Project Management consists of the following sections. To begin with, an introduction, then we have a system for value delivery, and finally, project management principles. We will start with the introduction. Here, The standard for project management provides a basis for understanding project management and enabling intended outcomes. This standard applies regardless of industry, location, size, or delivery approach, for example, predictive, hybrid, or adaptive. It simply describes the system within which projects operate, including governance, possible functions, the project environment, and considerations for the relationship between project management and product management. The standard for project management reflects the progression of the profession. Organizations expect projects to deliver outcomes in addition to outputs and artifacts. Project managers are expected to deliver projects that create value for the organization and stakeholders within the organization's system for value delivery. There are several terms that are defined to provide context for the content in this standard. We will discuss each of these in detail. Firstly, we have an outcome that is an end result or consequence of a process or project. Outcomes can include outputs and artifacts but have a broader intent by focusing on the benefits and value that the project was undertaken to deliver. Then, we have portfolio where projects, programs, subsidiary portfolios, and operations are managed as a group to achieve strategic objectives. A product is an artifact that is produced, is quantifiable, and can be either an end item in itself or a component item. On the other hand, a program is a set of related projects, subsidiary programs, and program activities that are managed in a coordinated manner to obtain benefits not available from managing them individually. A project, as we all know, is a temporary endeavor was undertaken to create a unique product, service, or result. The temporary nature of projects indicates a beginning and an end to the project work or a phase of the project work. Projects can stand alone or be part of a program or portfolio. Project management is the application of knowledge, skills, tools, and techniques to project activities to meet project requirements. Project management refers to guiding the project work to deliver the intended outcomes. Project teams can achieve the outcomes using a broad range of approaches. The project manager is the person assigned by the performing organization to lead the project, the team that is responsible for achieving the project objectives. Project managers perform a variety of functions, such as facilitating the project teamwork to achieve the outcomes and managing the processes to deliver intended outcomes. Moving on, we have the project team, a set of individuals performing the work of the project to achieve its objectives. A system for value delivery is simply a collection of strategic business activities aimed at building, sustaining, and/or advancing an organization. Portfolios, programs, projects, products, and operations can all be part of an organization's system for value delivery. Value is a means of calculating the worth, importance, or usefulness of something. Different stakeholders perceive value in different ways. Customers can define value as the ability to use specific features or functions of a product. Organizations can focus on business value as determined by financial metrics, such as the benefits less the cost of achieving those benefits. Societal value can include the contribution to groups of people, communities, or the environment. This standard provides a foundational reference for stakeholders participating in a project. This includes project practitioners, consultants, educators, students, sponsors, stakeholders, and vendors who are responsible or accountable for delivering project outcomes, people who also work on projects full or part-time, work in portfolio, program, or project management offices, PMOs. Some of them are involved in project sponsorship, product ownership, product management, executive leadership, or project governance. Few who are also involved with a portfolio or program management, and also some of the provided resources for project work and much more. Moving on to the next part of the session, we have a system for value delivery. Here, the information provides a context for value delivery, governance, project functions, the project environment, and product management. There are several factors that contribute to the system for value delivery. To begin with, we have creating value. Then, organizational governance systems, followed by functions associated with projects, then the project environment, and finally product management considerations. We will discuss each of these in detail. Firstly, we have creating value. Projects exist within a larger system, such as a governmental agency, organization, or contractual arrangement. For the sake of brevity, this standard uses the term organization when referring to government agencies, enterprises, contractual arrangements, joint ventures, and other arrangements. It is important that organizations create value for stakeholders. There are various components, such as portfolios, programs, projects, products, and operations that can be used individually and collectively to create value. Working together, these components comprise a system for delivering value aligned with the organization's strategy. A system to deliver value that has two portfolios comprised of programs and projects. It also shows a standalone program with projects and standalone projects not associated with portfolios or programs. Any of the projects or programs could include products. Operations can directly support and influence portfolios, programs, and projects, as well as other business functions, such as payroll, supply chain management, and so forth. Portfolios, programs, and projects influence each other as well as operations. A system for value delivery is part of an organization's internal environment that is subject to policies, procedures, methodologies, frameworks, governance structures, and so forth. That internal environment exists within the larger external environment, which includes the economy, the competitive environment, legislative constraints, etc. The components in a value delivery system create deliverables used to produce outcomes. An outcome is the end result or consequence of a process or a project. Focusing on outcomes, choices, and decisions emphasizes the long-range performance of the project. The outcomes create benefits, which are gains realized by the organization. Benefits, in turn, create value, which is something of worth, importance, or usefulness. A value delivery system works most effectively when information and feedback are shared consistently among all components, keeping the system aligned with strategy and attuned to the environment. Now, let's talk about organizational governance systems. The governance system works alongside the value delivery system to enable smooth workflows, manage issues, and support decision-making. Governance systems provide a framework with functions and processes that guide activities. A governance framework can include elements of oversight, control, value assessment, integration among components, and decision-making capabilities. Also, governance systems provide an integrated structure for evaluating changes, issues, and risks associated with the environment and any component in the value delivery system. This includes portfolio objectives, program benefits, and deliverables produced by projects. Projects can operate within a program or portfolio or as a standalone activity. Now, in some organizations, a project management office might support programs and projects within a portfolio. Project governance includes defining the authority to approve changes and make other business decisions related to the project. Project governance is aligned with program and organizational governance. Now, let us talk about the various functions associated with projects. It is important to know that people are responsible to drive project delivery. They do so by fulfilling the functions necessary for the project to run effectively and efficiently. Functions related to the project can be fulfilled by one person, by a group of people, or combined into defined roles. Coordinating a collective work effort is extremely important to the success of any project. There are different types of coordination suitable for different contexts. Some projects benefit from decentralized coordination in which project team members self-organize and self-manage. Other projects benefit from centralized coordination with the leadership and guidance of a designated project manager or similar role. Also, some projects with centralized coordination can also benefit from including self-organized project teams for portions of the work. Regardless of how coordination takes place, supportive leadership models and meaningful, continuous engagements between project teams and other stakeholders underpin successful outcomes. Next, we have the project environment. Projects exist and operate within internal and external environments that have varying degrees of influence on value delivery. Internal and external environments can influence planning and other project activities. These influences can yield a favorable, unfavorable, or neutral impact on project characteristics, stakeholders, or project teams. We have several factors governing the internal environment and external environment. Factors internal to the organization can arise from the organization itself, a portfolio, a program, another project, or a combination of these. They include artifacts, practices, or internal knowledge. Knowledge includes lessons learned as well as completed artifacts from previous projects. Finally, we have the project management considerations. The disciplines of portfolio, program, project, and product management are becoming more interlinked. While portfolio, program, and product management are beyond the scope of this standard, understanding each discipline and the relationships between them provides a useful context for projects whose deliverables are products. A product is an artifact that is produced, is quantifiable, and can be either an end item itself, or a component item. Product management involves the integration of people, data, processes, and business systems to create, maintain, and develop a product or service throughout its life cycle. The product life cycle is a series of phases that represents the evolution of a product, from introduction through growth, maturity, and retirement. Product management can exist in different forms, like the program management within a product life cycle. This approach incorporates related projects, subsidiary programs, and program activities. For very large or long-running products, one or more product life cycle phases may be sufficiently complex to merit a set of programs and projects working together. It can also exist in the form of project management within a product life cycle. This approach oversees the development and maturing of product capabilities as an ongoing business activity. Portfolio governance charters individual projects as needed to perform enhancements and improvements or to produce other unique outcomes. It can also exist as product management within a program. This approach applies the full product life cycle within the purview and boundaries of a given program. A series of subsidiary programs or projects will be chartered to achieve specific benefits for a product. Those benefits can be enhanced by applying product management competencies like competitive analysis, customer acquisition, and customer advocacy. While product management is a separate discipline with its own body of knowledge, it represents a key integration point within the program management and project management disciplines. Programs and projects with deliverables that include products use a tailored and an integrated approach that incorporates all of the relevant bodies of knowledge and their related practices, methods, and artifacts. Now, let's move on to the next part of today's session and talk about the project management principles. Principles for a profession serve as foundational guidelines for strategy, decision-making, and problem-solving. Professional standards and methodologies are often based on principles. In some professions, principles serve as laws or rules and are therefore prescriptive in nature. The principles of project management are not prescriptive in nature. They are intended to guide the behavior of people involved in projects. They are broadly based, so there are many ways individuals and organizations can maintain alignment with the principles. Principles can, but do not necessarily, reflect morals. A code of ethics is related to morals. A code of ethics for a profession can be adopted by an individual or profession to establish expectations for moral conduct. The PMI Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct is based on 4 values that were identified as most important to the project management community: responsibility, respect, fairness, and honesty. The 12 principles of project management are aligned with the values identified in the PMI Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct. They do not follow the same format, and they are not duplicative, rather the principles and the Code of Ethics are complementary. Multiple rounds of feedback resulted in 12 principles that provide guidance for effective project management. The following is the list of the 12 principles: be a diligent, respectful, and caring steward, create a collaborative project team environment, effectively engage with stakeholders, focus on value, recognize, evaluate, and respond to system interactions, demonstrate leadership behaviors. Tailor based on context, build quality into processes and deliverables, navigate complexity, optimize risk responses, embrace adaptability and resiliency, and the last one is enable change to achieve the envisioned future state. Now let's move on to the next part of the session and understand the structure of PMBOK 7 that describes the relationship of the PMBOK Guide to the Standard for Project Management, changes to the PMBOK Guide, the relationship to PMI Standard Plus, and provides a brief overview of the content. The PMBOK Guide contains 3 sections. Firstly, we have the project performance domains. This section identifies and describes 8 project performance domains that form an integrated system to enable successful delivery of the project and intended outcomes. Moving ahead, we have tailoring that describes what tailoring is and presents an overview of what to tailor and how to go about tailoring individual projects. Finally, we have models, methods, and artifacts. This section presents a brief description of commonly used models, methods, and artifacts. These models, methods, and artifacts illustrate the range of options project teams can use to produce deliverables, organize work, and enable communication and collaboration. Let us talk about the project performance domains. A project performance domain is a group of related activities that are critical for the effective delivery of project outcomes. Project performance domains are interactive, interrelated, and interdependent areas of focus that work in unison to achieve desired project outcomes. There are 8 project performance domains: stakeholders, team, development approach, and life cycle, planning, project work, delivery, measurement, and uncertainty. Together the performance domains form a unified whole. In this way, the performance domains operate as an integrated system, with each performance domain being interdependent of the other performance domains to enable successful delivery of the project and its intended outcomes. Performance domains run concurrently throughout the project, regardless of how value is delivered. For example, project leads spend time focused on stakeholders, the project team, the project life cycle, the project work, and so forth, from the outset of the project to its closure. These areas of focus are not addressed as siloed efforts because they overlap and interconnect. The ways in which the performance domains relate are different for each project, but they are present in every project. The specific activities undertaken within each performance domain are determined by the context of the organization, the project, deliverables, the project team, stakeholders, and other factors. The performance domains are presented in the following sections without specific weighting or order. Next, we have tailoring. It is the deliberate adaptation of the project management approach, governance, and processes to make them more suitable for a given environment and the work at hand. In a project environment, tailoring considers the development approach, processes, project life cycle, deliverables, and choice of people with whom to engage. The tailoring process is driven by the guiding project management principles in the Standard for Project Management, organizational values, and organizational culture. For instance, if a core organizational value is customer centricity, then the activities selected for requirements elicitation and scope validation favor customer-centered approaches. This aligns with the principle of effectively engage with stakeholders. Likewise, an organization with a low appetite for risk may have many processes and procedures to guide projects throughout their life cycles. A similar company operating in the same market, but with a high tolerance for risk, may have fewer processes and procedures. In both of these examples, the organizations are aligned with the principle of optimized risk responses even though their appetite, processes, and procedures are different. Tailoring entails the mindful selection and adjustment of multiple project factors, regardless of whether the label of tailoring is used. There may be situations that limit the degree to which project teams can tailor their approach, for example, when organizational policies mandate the use of a specific approach or a contract specifies a mandated approach. Moving to the next part we have models, methods, and artifacts. A model is a thinking strategy to explain a process, framework, or phenomenon. On the other hand, a method is the means for achieving an outcome, output, result, or project deliverable. An artifact can be a template, document, output, or project deliverable. Project teams will start to build a framework for structuring their efforts to deliver the project outcomes. For example, project teams select specific methods to enable capturing and sharing the applicable information so they can track progress, improve project team performance in real time, and engage stakeholders. As with any process, the use of models, methods, and artifacts has associated costs related to time, level of expertise/proficiency in use, impact on productivity, etc. Project teams should consider these implications when deciding which elements to use. As much as possible, project teams should avoid using anything that duplicates or adds unnecessary effort, is not useful to the project team and its stakeholders, produces incorrect or misleading information, or caters to individual needs versus those of the project team. Finally, we will discuss the most prominent revisions to the Standard for Project Management and migration from the 6th to the 7th edition of the PMBOK Guide, along with the connection to the PMI Standards Plus digital platform. We already know that the PMBOK 7th edition is relevant to any type of project as compared to earlier versions that were relevant to most of the projects but not relevant to every one of them. PMBOK 7 is segregated into 2 sections, the Standard for Project Management and a Guide to the Project Management Body of Knowledge. Also, focus is shifted from creating deliverables to creating value. There is a change from 49 processes and 5 process groups to 12 principles, 10 knowledge areas to 8 performance domains, 600 plus ETOs to models, methods, and artifacts. There is also a simple mention of tailoring to defining a comprehensive tailoring framework. All of the content can be accessed via a digital content platform that is the PMI Standards Plus that is launched and offered to PMI members to understand and practically apply all that is talked about in PMBOK 7. Next, we will discuss the factors that help to update the PMBOK Guide. Following is the 6th step followed by PMI to update PMBOK. Firstly, we have the PMI charters a volunteer committee to develop or update a standard. Then, the volunteer committee drafts and/or refines an existing standard. Secondly, a group of subject matter experts review initial drafts of the standard and provide feedback to the committee. Moving on, the committee revises the draft standard and prepares a document for public review and comment. The committee considers input from the public and may revise the standard in response. Then, the final standard is presented to the PMI Standards Consensus Committee, which consists of volunteers from the profession for final validation. Finally, the new standard is submitted for approval by the PMI Director, Standards and Publications before it is released. That's it, folks. With this, we have reached the end of today's session on What News in PMBOK 7. If this has spiked your interest and you want to know more about project management, I recommend you to opt for PMP certification training and clear the exam. At Invensis Learning, we provide various PMP certifications that will pave the way for your career in project management. For each of these certifications, we are accredited by respective governing bodies or courses in line with their guidelines. Post-enrollment, you will get lifetime access to a personalized learning management system. LMS has all the class recordings, live class, webinar links along with assignments and case studies to practice. All classes are live instructor-led, delivered by trainers with rich domain experience. Thank you guys. See you in the next session.